Hello, boys and ghouls. This is Brian Baugh, creator of WULF and BATSY, back with you for another drawing video. Been a little while since I did one of these. Today I'm drawing some zombies. Basically, I just need a bunch of random zombies to insert into an illustration that I'm working on for another project, an upcoming project. No spoilers. I'll reveal what that is in due time. I already penciled this first guy before I did the video, and it was only after I penciled him that I thought, this might be a fun one to ink for a drawing video. So hooked up the old camera, and we are off to the races. So as always, whenever I do these drawing videos, I always put out a little invitation on my social media asking people to send me questions, give me topics, things to talk about on the drawing video, so it's not boring to watch. And I certainly got a bunch of questions this time, so let's see what we got here. I'll try to go down the list. There's a lot of them, so I'll try to answer them all quickly. John's long box. He can always be relied on to send in a few questions. He asks, can vampires feed on werewolves or vampires? I suppose it's possible, but why would they want to do that? I mean, that would be like a normal wolf in the wild attacking another wolf when there's plenty of deer and field mice running around. Why would they want to put themselves in that situation of battling one of the most powerful other creatures in their world? But I mean, besides that, why would a vampire want to feed on a werewolf and get all that, fur stuck in their teeth? No. Much better to just hunt beautiful damsels in distress like always. The old methods work fine. And in my comic book world, there's plenty of those around. John also asks, not sure if I asked this before, but are werewolves undead? Did Kevin die and come back as a werewolf? It's not quite the same thing as being undead. Of course, we're only talking about in the context of my little comic book universe. But according to my logic, my little version of reality, it's not the same thing as dying and coming back as an undead like a zombie would or like a vampire would. It's more like contracting a disease that transforms you completely. One of the best analogies I ever heard to explain lycanthropy or werewolfism was one time someone once said, for the werewolf, it's sort of like he has cancer, but instead of killing him, it's making him kill everybody else. I like that. And that's kind of the way I look at it too. John's Longbox also asks, are there other weir creatures? Weir bears, weir skunks, weir cats, or weir worms? Well, in folklore, there's all kinds of other shape-shifting creatures, but that doesn't mean I would be interested in them or want to use them in my stories. I remember when I was a kid, I had a great book on werewolves. It was called Meet the Werewolf by an author named Georges McHargue. I still have a copy of it today. But that was a great book on werewolves. But I remember there was one chapter that dealt with other kinds of shapeshifters, and it talked about weird jaguars being common in the mythology of certain parts of the world. And even as a kid in the 4th grade or however old I was reading that book, I remember my imagination just completely rejected that. Like, no, weird jaguars, that's stupid. So, I don't know. I'm not saying they couldn't possibly exist, but I'm not terribly interested in doing stories about that. The one other lycanthropic monster that I actually really love is the lizard in the Spider-Man comics. A man who turns into a human lizard, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. I'm happy just sticking with werewolves. I don't feel any interest in doing werebears, wereskunks, werecats, or wereworms. Although those did make me laugh. Doc Strange asks, how about Warren Publishing? Favorite stories, artists, etc. For those who may not be familiar, Warren Publishing was the company that put out Creepy Magazine, Eerie Magazine, and Vampirella in the 1970s. I was born a little too late to really enjoy Warren from the beginning, but I caught on to the tail end of that. I am definitely a fan of the Warren horror magazines. I have piles of them, and also the reprints. I love all three of them: Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella. Love them all. Obviously, you asked about favorite stories, favorite artists. Obviously, the early issues of Creepy magazine with the Frank Frazetta cover paintings are just classic material. As far as stories and interior artists, my favorite, without question, is the work that Bernie Wrightson did for Creepy magazine. There's actually a great reprint book that was put out. It was basically a collected hardcover book of everything that Wrightson did when he worked on Creepy magazine. If you don't have the patience to go back and collect all of the individual original issues, I recommend getting that book. Frankie B. Washington asks, are there other werewolves like Wolf? Perhaps a female werewolf to shake things up with Batsy for the affection of Wolf. Trying to make her jealous, are you? Okay, let's take the first part of that question first. Are there other werewolves like Wolf? Well, obviously, in my little comic book universe, werewolves are a thing. So, of course, there could be other ones out there. I don't have any plans currently to do any future stories where other werewolves would come into it. But I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, it could be possible. As for the second part of your question, perhaps a female werewolf to shake things up with Batsy. We're getting into my own personal biases about werewolves now. I have never liked the idea of female werewolves. I just haven't. I just never have. Which is weird because in The Howling, one of my all-time favorite, top 3 favorite werewolf movies ever, there was a prominent female werewolf character featured in that. But, she wasn't the main werewolf character. She was just one of the supporting characters. Anyway, I don't know. There's exceptions to every rule, I guess. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I don't know. I don't like the idea of female werewolves, and I have no intention of ever doing a story about one. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the body hair issue. I find that very off-putting and very unattractive. Which I know sounds weird when you're talking about monsters, but there's such a thing as having an ugly female monster. You can do powerful things, right? Like with old ugly witches, or like, one of my favorite female monsters in a movie ever is in Return of the Living Dead, the half-corpse zombie. I remember reading an article in Fangoria magazine where the special effects guy who designed that one, their idea was that she should look like the rotted corpse of a once very beautiful woman. So they gave her that long red hair and everything. So, you can do very effective things with ugly female monsters, but generally speaking, I think female characters in a visual medium like comic books or movies should be attractive. I mean, female vampires are a perfect example of that, right? Because they look like normal women, but then they sprout fangs and get down to business. I mean, if you think about it, like even the Bride of Frankenstein, if you really look at her, she's got the crazy hair and the bandages and all that stuff, and scars under her chin and everything, but her face is really just an exaggerated glamour makeup, So I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just furry female monsters that I don't care for. I don't know. But also another reason why a female werewolf would never work in my stories to make Batsy jealous would be because Kevin Orlock, Wolf's human form, would not find them attractive. He knows what he likes, and his type is Batsy. And by the way, I should add that there have been occasions in some of the other Wolf and Batsy stories where Kevin Orlock did pursue other women, and he finds human-looking women attractive, not female monsters. He's a very typical, red-blooded American male in that regard. Anyway, so now that I've offended all the furry fans out there, let's move on to the next question. Larry King asks, any chance at sexy mummy women to appear in any future work? I have been working on Wolf and Batsy for a long time, writing and drawing stories about them long before the series got picked up by my former publisher and was put out to attract a new readership and all of that. And some of those stories I did way back when have been reprinted as part of the ongoing series, but not all of them. And there was one of the earlier stories that did not include a mummy character, but Batsy made a friend, another girl character. There was a Halloween party sequence, and that girl dressed up in a sexy, skimpy mummy costume with bandages just covering all the right places, that sort of thing. She was not technically a real mummy. She was a cute girl wearing a mummy costume. And that was just one scene, a Halloween party scene in a longer story that I did called Lustmord Nightmares. And I will eventually be reprinting that story as part of the ongoing series in future issues. So look for that. As far as future stories, well, I'm going to remain tight-lipped on that because, well, I don't want to spoil anything. Special Spice Dealer asks, why doesn't Batsy prey on Kevin? Has she ever attempted to in the past? Is she merely controlling herself around him? Does it have to do with any supernatural rules, consequences, or simply because she likes him? This is getting into the same kind of territory that we discussed with the other question earlier, but let's take these one at a time. Why doesn't Batsy prey on Kevin? Well, because she likes him. Has she ever attempted to in the past? No. Is she merely controlling herself around him? No, she doesn't need to. Does it have to do with any supernatural rules or consequences? Well, yeah, it has to do with one really big consequence, which is if she turned on him and tried to attack him, he's a freaking werewolf. He would rip her head off. It'd be over before she knew it. So anyway, there's my very snarky rapid-fire answer to all those questions. Some questions are just easier and more obvious to answer than others, that's all. Dad's Den, J.M. Stater, asks, what is your favorite movie with a guy in a gorilla suit? This is obviously touching on Wolf and Batsy issue 7 with the story The Gorilla Suit Maniac, which had a lot of Hollywood history in it. If you haven't read that issue before, I recommend it. It seems to be kind of a fan favorite issue. A lot of people really like that one. My favorite movie with a guy in a gorilla suit. Wow. I tell you, when I was working on the Gorilla Suit Maniac comic book, I did a lot of research. I had seen a lot of movies with guys in gorilla suits. That's what gave me a love for the whole idea in the first place. Well, that and my 2010 Halloween costume, which was a gorilla suit, and I discovered the absolute fun and joy of dressing up like a gorilla. Yeah. It's a super cool kind of Halloween costume, and everybody reacts to it. And everybody wants to get their picture taken with you, too. It's fun. But yeah, anyway, when I was working on that comic, I'd seen a lot of movies with guys in gorilla suits, but I also felt like I need to see more. I need to explore this subgenre. And let me tell you, it is a very difficult thing to research because there's like no coverage of it on the internet. Like even the internet, where you think there's all the information in the world, it's like this is a real niche topic that very few people are interested in. There's no books about it. Like, I even looked like, is there a book on gorilla suit movies? No. There was like one website, Hollywood Gorilla Men, I think it was called. Anyway, it's a really weird, funny, overlooked era of Hollywood history. The era before they could do CGI gorillas, and anytime they wanted a gorilla in a movie, they had a guy in a gorilla suit. And the thing I love about gorilla suits is, in old movies, especially in the old black and white movies, is that because they're so kind of off, and because gorillas were so rarely seen by the general public, even in zoos back in those days, they were uncommon. It was a rarely seen animal by the general public. So Hollywood could get away with having guys in gorilla suits and not making them terribly accurate because the average moviegoer didn't know any better. So a lot of times what's so cool about a lot of those gorilla suit characters in a lot of those old black and white movies from the 30s and 40s is they don't look like real gorillas. They look like gorilla monsters, like they have overly sharp teeth and sticking out of the mouth, and the craziest exaggerated faces, they look like comic book gorillas come to life. But I have to say, my favorite movie with guys in gorilla suits would probably be Tarzan and His Mate, which is the second film in the 1930s Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan series. Tarzan and His Mate is an absolutely fascinating movie because it is a pre-code Hollywood film made before the Hays office put the movie code, the censorship codes into effect, back when movies were getting away with everything. If you're not familiar with the era of pre-code Hollywood movies, look into it. You will be blown away. You will not believe it. I'm talking, it has graphic violence, female nudity, blatantly erotic themes in their dialogue and in suggestiveness of certain sequences. And in this movie, there's a particularly shocking scene where the safari guys are exploring, going up the side of a mountain, and they're being led by a bunch of jungle natives as their guides. And all of a sudden, these boulders start falling down and smashing guys and knocking them off the side of the mountain. And they look up, and it's a whole family of evil gorillas up on top of the mountain, throwing giant rocks down on top of them, smashing the guys and knocking them off the mountain. And oh, it's such a cool scene. And only Tarzan can make them calm down and stop massacring these people. And the gorilla suits in that sequence are particularly cool looking. I think the main gorilla actor in that one was a guy named Ray Crash Corrigan. And his personal gorilla suit had a really cool look to it. I actually based the look of the Gorilla Suit Maniac's costume on his gorilla suit from those movies. And it should be noted that in the comic book, Wolf and Batsy issue 7, the Gorilla Suit Maniac story, the one movie role that the Gorilla Suit Maniac actually gets when he's trying out for roles in Hollywood, he gets a role in Tarzan and His Mate as one of those gorillas up on the cliff that's throwing the rocks. It's in the comic book. So if you watch Tarzan and His Mate, you can watch it and pretend that one of those gorillas throwing the rocks is actually the guy who later on met Wolf and Batsy and became the Gorilla Suit Maniac. But there's a lot of great movies with guys in gorilla suits. Another movie I like that's referenced in the Gorilla Suit Maniac comic is a movie from 1930 starring Lon Chaney called The Unholy Three. And the actor who played the gorilla in that one was Charles Gamora, who was widely considered like the godfather of gorilla suit acting. He's like the master of that particular craft. He not only played gorillas in a lot of different movies, but he also made his own suits. And you look into Charles Gamora. He's a real interesting Hollywood character. He also built and played the Martian in the 1950s George Powell version of War of the Worlds. So he was a creature builder. I think he might have played the alien in I Married a Monster from Outer Space as well. Double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure he did. He was a really interesting guy in the golden age of Hollywood, creating monster suits and gorilla suits and then playing those characters in various movies. He also played the gorilla in Island of Lost Souls, one of the classic 1930s horror films. So anyway, yeah, so I can go on and on and on all day long about gorilla suits. One of these days I need to do a video, commentary video on my issue 7, and I can just go on about it all day long. So anyway, thanks for the question. So you'll see at the end of this little lineup of zombies, the very last one is a female zombie. I'm recording this voiceover a week or two after I did this drawing, and looking back on it now, I realize she's the only one I didn't end up using. I said at the beginning of the video that I was drawing these zombies as sort of like background characters to insert into an illustration for an upcoming project, and all the other guys fit in there just fine, but she was the one kind of awkward character that didn't quite fit. Also, I didn't think she was quite gruesome enough, so she didn't make the final cut, as they say. But you'll get to see her here in the drawing video, but she won't end up in the final piece. So this might be her one and only appearance. So I needed a little extra time on this video in order to answer all the questions that came in. So here's one more clip of another drawing that I made a video of while I was working on it. It's a sketch cover featuring Batsy. This was a commission for a client. And the weird thing is, I have a video of me drawing Batsy, but I could not seem to find a video of me drawing the rest of the background. So I don't know if I recorded it and I just can't find it, or if I just somehow stopped recording after I drew her and didn't record the rest of it. I don't know. But anyway, I'll post the final drawing with the background in there at the end of the video. Macabre Detective asks, any hope of a Wolf and Batsy movie being made? Is it something you even want, or are you indifferent to the idea? I've sort of answered this question before in previous videos, although I think when somebody asked it before, they were asking, will there ever be a Wolf and Batsy animated TV series? Since I work in animation, I guess, you know, maybe some people thought that was possible. But the idea of a Wolf and Batsy movie, I don't even think about it, because I just know that it's so completely not even remotely possible. I mean, you know, you said, is that something I even want, or am I indifferent to the idea? Let me turn that around on you. Are you sure that's something you would want? Because if you think about it, seems like every time there's a movie that comes out these days based on a comic book, everybody hates it. You know? All I see is complaining online about how they ruined this or that comic book with a movie that's not faithful to the source material. Is that what you want to see? And think about it like that. Like if they actually made one, do you really believe it would turn out good? It's an issue that I don't even really ever think about because I just know that it's so unlikely. But even if you wanted to play pretend that they did do that, I mean, do you really trust in this day and age that would go well? This reminds me of an old joke that I've heard. I think it was a novelist who said, the best thing that can happen to you if Hollywood buys the rights to your book to make it into a movie, the best thing that can happen is that they option it, but they never make it. So the author gets the money, but they never make the movie that's a terrible adaptation of his book and ruin it for him. So, but the other issue too is, these days Hollywood isn't really interested in making movies based on new IP or lesser known IP, right? That's another big complaint people have all the time. All they do is make movies that are remakes or reboots of other movies that we've already seen. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not going to happen. But if it did, I'm not sure if it would be great anyway. Oh, Macabre Detective has another question here. He says, will you ever return to the role that made you a star? Leech Boy? Wow, you've done your research. He's asking, I'm sure most people don't know about this. He's asking about a series of short films that my buddy Dave Hartman and I made back in the early 2000s. And, in all of them, we would play weird, bizarro characters. And there was a couple of them where I played this character called Leech Boy. Hey, it wasn't the most embarrassing thing that happened in those movies, okay? Because Dave played a Girl Scout with a beard. And my buddy Mike probably had the coolest role because he played a giant monster whose whole head was a giant eyeball. Yeah, good times. Okay, let's see. I've got one more question here. Dr. Mask Retro Elixir asks, how do you get rich in indie comics? Oh, that's easy. All you have to do is, at some point in your comic book series, be sure to have a special issue with a gorilla. Or, in my case, like a Gorilla Suit Maniac. It's like printing gold. The general public just can't resist it. They have to buy that issue. That's the secret. That's how it happened for me. And I know, there's some other people out there who have different ideas. What's that one guy's name? Musk. Elon Musk. Yeah, that guy. He has some strange ideas about, I don't know, investing in Bitcoin or buying social media platforms and rebuilding them or something like that. And that's fine, but if all those little endeavors are working out so well for him, how come he keeps emailing me and asking me for the secret to making a great gorilla comic book? It's like, come on, Elon, leave me alone. You got to find your own way, pal. Anyway, I don't want to be, sitting here giving people financial advice or whatever. I'm just saying that's how it happened for me. Anyway, that's all the questions that people sent in this time around, and I do appreciate every single one of them. My apologies if I answered a few of them kind of snarky. But no, I really do appreciate all of you guys sending in questions. It's really cool. It's fun, it gives me something to talk about on these videos and gives you guys a chance to ask me what I think about certain things, I guess, or whatever. Or, I love the questions, especially about where you guys are asking about the comic books, it just tells me that you guys have really read Wolf and Batsy. You really care about the characters and the stories, and you have further questions where you want to know more about them. That's super flattering and so nice, and I really do appreciate that, all of you guys. So anyway, that's it for this one. If you haven't got my comics before, they are available on my website, brianbaugh.net, and go to the store page. Thanks, everybody, once again, and I'll see you next time.